Hey everyone, this is Rocky from WeLearnChess.com, and I've got a video here on one variation in the King's Gambit accepted from the black perspective with a move that I don't think I have ever played in my games, but looking with some analysis with the computer, it looks like I'm going to start playing. So if you get a King's Gambit here, so e4, e5, and then f4, I a lot of times take this, and then if you get something like knight f3, then I'll play this Fisher defense, which you can get some different move orders. A lot of times you'll see something like this, and I mean sometimes you'll see this here. You can protect your pawn. You have to be careful not to pre-move this stuff because, for example, here, whoops, instead of playing bishop c4, sometimes white plays first here a quick d4, and then you could play, this might not be the best move, but if you wanted, you could protect your pawn this way. A good move here for white might be like h4 or h3, the computer's even suggested. And all these variations, black has a slight advantage, but they're super, super sharp. And actually, these early h4 lines you really have to look at. I've lost plenty of games just because, one little slip up and you can get in a lot of trouble just because your king can be open a lot. A lot of times your light squares are weak and it's hard to protect them. So you just have to play around a little bit and see what you're comfortable with playing. But if you get something like this, let's just make some common moves here, and you put your bishop here, which also sometimes you can put your bishop here if white hasn't castled yet, because it helps protect your rook in case of early pawn pushes. Then your pawn, your h pawn, isn't pinned necessarily because your bishop protects your rook. And you might get some. There's all sorts of things that could happen here, but like just to play some common moves. Now you've got pressure on f7, so you can actually just castle kingside. And I mean, you have to be careful all game, and white still has a lot of tactical opportunities. So you have to develop, you know, creatively and intelligent with your pieces. But a lot of times later in the game, especially if white ever moves this bishop off this diagonal, you can get a knight up here, which is awesome. And just kind of slowly try to simplify the position without making concessions, and then you're just usually in a winning endgame. But anyway, the video is not about these lines. I just wanted to show that. So sometimes in this position here, instead of playing knight f3, white will play what's called the bishop's gambit, bishop c4, and here the computer points out an interesting move. I was still playing just basically the same thing. I was playing d6 and h6 and g5 and all that same stuff, kind of. But an interesting move here is the immediate d5. And I've heard that a quick d5 against the king's gambit is often a good thing. So let's check out some variations. Well, if he just takes with the pawn here, he kind of blocks off his bishop from f7, so this isn't totally great. And now you can play this queen check. A lot of times this queen check isn't as good as you would think. Like a lot of times white can just play king f1, and it's amazingly, he's kind of fine. But here you can block this pawn, which blocks the pressure from the bishop, protect your pawn, and your development's actually not that bad here. And you're going to be able to actually castle kingside. I mean, if you just make a couple moves, like if he wants to try to open up his bishop, and you could, well, I was just going to develop here. The computer actually says knight e7 is better, maybe just to keep some pressure on this pawn, and I'd have to think, yeah, maybe there's a plan to get this knight to a good square here somewhere, and maybe try to get it all the way up to e3 in some lines. So who knows? But anyway, you're going to be able to castle quickly and then just get your pieces out for a nice attack. And he's going to have to waste moves, probably moving his knight. Like anytime he moves his knight out here, you can usually drop back to h6. Just keep an eye on this pawn. And if he wants to try to win this pawn, he's really going to have to open up his king with something like g3 or something to try to exploit the pin here. But his king's probably not going to survive that. So again, he's going to have to waste moves like moving his king over, maybe playing h3, getting his king over here, and then he's in sight of your bishop, so it's not looking great for white. But you might see something like that because there are some common moves. So pawn takes isn't that great. So bishop takes is a little bit better. And here you could play the queen check as well. You could play c6 first if you want to try to get this bishop, just get a tempo here. But let's look at these lines here, because this is what I was looking at that maybe decide that this is a nice idea. Well, the first thing is he just can't play g3 because you can just take this here, and I mean this is already really, I mean, if let's say he attacks the queen here, you can just play this check, and you can actually just give up this because you're going to get another queen here, and not only that, you're going to win his queen. Because if it goes here on a light square, you're going to play this check, and if he tries to not do that and go to a dark square, you can just take this queen. So you're going to be up a whole lot of material. So actually, that knight move doesn't save him. And if he tries to do something like queen here, queen to f3, this isn't going to work because you can play the same check here. And no matter what he does, I mean, if he blocks it, you can just take this and get another queen. Oops. Oops, I can't click here. So that's no good. So queen f3 doesn't work. So then maybe that leaves like you could try maybe king f1, which a lot of times white tries in these positions. But here, he's already in a lot of trouble. I mean, geez, I don't even know what is best here. There's like so many different options. You could play the bishop out, attack the queen. I mean, white's running out of options. At some point, he's going to have to try to probably sack on bishop takes f7 so he can get his queen out with tempo. But here, I don't even know if that really works. He might even just have to take this with the queen, which is crazy. I mean, let's say if he goes here to a dark square, you've still got this this nice check here, and here we guess he would have to take that. He could take his queen, among other things. There might even be some kind of mating combination there. I'm not sure. So, so basically, what all this means is that if he plays this, this quick g3, then you take it, and he basically doesn't have a move. The only thing left here would be something like this, where he sacks. You take, he plays queen f3 with check, and then amazingly you can play your knight out and allow this this win back of the piece, because again you have this check. And I mean, there's really no good move here. I mean, if he plays king e2, which is actually the computer's recommended move, you just win the queen. And most human players aren't going to do that, right? So he'll probably try to block it. Let's say he tries to block either here or here. I think it's pretty much the same. You can play queen e4 check, and then if he blocks again, you can. You don't even have to take this queen right away. Actually, this is kind of a fun variation. So if he takes this queen, then you can take here first, and then wherever he goes, then you can take here. You've got, you're attacking other pieces. You've actually got a mating threat between all these pieces because your bishops are both open. So you're going to be able to get some checks with your bishops, and there's just white has absolutely no defensive pieces here whatsoever. So, so what that means is that even this sort of desperado try in this position doesn't work. There's other variations here too, like he doesn't have to try to do this, but basically anything, like if he tries here to attack your queen, well, you can just take this with check, queen trade, and I don't even know what the material count is here. I mean, you're up a piece because he sacked on f7, plus the pawns are even, so he doesn't have a pawn for it. If you've got the bishop pair, your pieces are going to come out a lot faster. I mean, let's just make a couple moves here so you can see maybe your bishop comes to d6. You've already got some pressure on this pawn, but you don't have to take it. This would be kind of a funny move, this check here. But again, you could play the knight back. I mean, it's going to take him a couple moves to try to exploit this pin. You'd be able to get out in time, because he can't just like start pushing the pawn unless you can take it with your bishop. So, who knows what what kind of stuff would happen here, but you get something like this. And maybe I would keep wanting to play this h rook out, but the computer plays like 8 more moves before getting it out. But anyway, even if you just played like some standard move, I mean, anything you play here, computer's given like a 4 to 5 pawn advantage. So you're just killing white there. So that attack on the queen doesn't work, and if that doesn't work, again, if you try something like king f1, then here you can actually just take this pawn. I mean, it's hard to remember all these variations, but the nice thing here is that because the queen's on f3, it's blocking the sort of knight's tempo gaining move to knight f3 to push your queen out. And so here, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but basically you're probably going to be able to get your pieces out, and your king's going to end up being safer than his. His king's never going to be safe. And again, he sacked a piece here in this line, so he doesn't really have anything to show for it. So usually if white sacks a piece, he gets some crazy attack on you, then that's, he's got some chances, but not in these lines. So basically all of that means that, that's why g3 is a bad move. And it's kind of instinctive that this would be a bad move, but it's good to see all the variations first. So, okay, so we can't play g3 here. That means he's got to play king f1 as the best move. And then, here you could do a number of different things. I think that probably any knight move to develop is good because you're going to get a tempo on his bishop if he wants to move it. So, if he doesn't want to move it and lose time, so maybe he'll play, knight f3 first, just try to kick this queen. You can pretty much always drop to h6 in these variations. And if he just tries to, develop, which a lot of King's Gambit players will try to do, but they usually try to find fancy ways to do it well. Here at least, if you take this bishop, he'll be able to take back with a knight. So maybe c6 first, just to get this this bishop out of here. And you can do a lot of different things. I guess you could pin this. Actually, no, that's not good. That's interesting. Wow, that's a funny trap. Oops, that's not right. Out of e5 check, yeah, of course. That's kind of silly. That's funny because it actually keeps your king out here in the center. That's actually really bad. Okay, so don't fall into that trap, I guess. Oops. Something like that, but now your king is not so safe. So, wow, you have to be really careful in the King's Gambit. It's amazing. So here, let's see, what should you play? I guess probably something simple like that. Again, I mean, it's getting kind of close to equal in the computer evaluation. The computer seems to like this bishop b4, I guess, better than anything. This is probably better than anything I just tried there. But bishop b7 is probably okay too. So here I'm not really sure a lot of times. White will go for d4 at some point in these lines. So I don't know if you just would want to castle here, or maybe you want to mess up his pawns first just to simplify, and then castle. White does have kind of a central pawn presence, so even though his c-pawns are doubled, he might be able to get some pushes in here and create some difficulties for you. But at least your king is safer. His king's going to have a hard time getting safe. And you can get your pieces out and try to do some things here. So pretty interesting lines there. And that's basically if he doesn't fall for anything here with g3. So that's basically the best that white can do, is just allow this kind of development. And I was kind of curious too here if if even just taking, I mean, I guess taking this probably isn't a good idea because you're going to let his, that's no good. Because in here, because the problem is if you play bishop d6, I guess you can probably play e5, yeah. And then eventually you're facing this check here, so you probably have to play some tactical continuation. Like, you don't want to allow this this knight check here, obviously. So I mean, if something like this is such a mess. This is the problem with these King's Gambit lines. They usually go for these messy continuations, so you do have to sit here and study this stuff, or kind of get a feel for what the patterns are, or just to improve your tactics. I guess that's probably the best thing because it serves you in a lot of different positions. But all of these variations make it seem like a quick d5 is actually a good move, because regardless of which way he takes here, you're going to be able to play this queen check, and then he doesn't really have a great response. You should be, at the very least, you should be able to get your pieces out and castle, and your king should be safer. And remember, you are up a pawn in all these lines too, so at some point, even if you had to let him win a pawn, like if you had to let him win this f4 pawn back at some point, but in exchange you got like 1 or 2 tempi to get your pieces to better squares, then you would just be even material. You'd have good development, and his king would not be safe. So all of that is, seems like a pretty good deal for black. You can't really ask for much more out of the opening than to get a position like that. So if your opponent tries this Bishop's Gambit, then I recommend that you try this early move d5 here and give that a shot. Maybe play around a little bit first with your program to see what the variations are and go over some of this, and then give it a shot in your games and let me know how it goes. Good luck.